So I didn't watch the speech that was given by Jan Fuhrer at the joint congressional speech by the baboon's ass. They're calling it the State of the Union, which, why is it called the State of the Union? He just got in there. What the hell would he know about the State of the Union? And if that speech had any indication about the State of the Union, well, the State of the Union is awful. It is awful. Maybe he's trying to say he's trying to unite the Union by people being opposed to him. Is that what he's trying to do? He's trying to unite everybody by being against what he's doing. This is my introduction to the State of the Union that was given by the baboon's ass. Al Green is just walking outside the halls.
The president said he had a mandate. And I was making it clear to the president that he has no mandate to cut Medicaid. I have people who are very fearful. These are poor people, and they have only Medicaid in their lives when it comes to their health care. And I want him to know that his budget calls for deep cuts in Medicaid. He needs to save Medicaid, protect it. We need to raise the cap on Social Security. There's a possibility that it's going to be hurt. And we've got to protect Medicare. These are the safety net programs that people in my congressional district depend on.
So all they were doing is just asking him what was he saying. So if you watch the speech, from the perspective of the legacy media, the dumb media, the fake news, the stupid fake news, they sit there perched up on the damn, rafters, and they just, point the camera one way and pretend there's not, 500 members there. 435, right? 435 members of Congress. And so if you only saw it from that vantage point, then all you kind of heard was some sort of disruption in the gallery. Some guy who's, speaking about something, you could kind of barely hear him. It's not very audible, and it's not very crystal clear about what he's talking about. An elderly gentleman who's got a cane, and he's pointing the cane, at the president. And it's interesting how it's always, black folks who lead the charge. He's going to say a whole bunch of other things, but let's listen to him some more.
And this president seems to care less about them and more about the number of people that he can remove from the various programs that have been so helpful to so many people. It is the best way to get it across to a person who uses his incivility against our civility. He is a person who has consistently been used incivility against civility.
So do you have no mandate? Is that what you said?
Well, look, I'm willing to suffer whatever punishment is available to me. I didn't say to anyone.
What is this lady right here doing? I don't understand. So he was escorted out. The sergeant of arms had escorted him out. And I think that's historically, I don't know if that's ever happened. I don't know if any House of Representative rep has ever been escorted out. So, and then they just did the censure too. So there was like, hey you, Mr. Al Green, don't you do that, Mr. Al Green. There's no legal consequences for a censor. If anything, that's just going to help his campaign coffers, and he's just going to get stronger and stronger. Earlier, maybe a month ago, he had filed articles of impeachment for the proposed genocide. Donald Trump says he's going to do a genocide, and he's going to, push for Israel to finish the job. Right? He's calling for the final solution of the Palestinian people. That's 2 million people. There's 2 million souls in Gaza, the West Bank, and Bethlehem.
Don't punish me. I've said I'll accept the punishment, but it's worth it to let people know that there are some of us who are going to stand up against this president's desire to cut Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security.
So were you saying you have no mandate? Is that what you just said?
He has no mandate to cut Medicaid. None.
Is the only punishment that you were kicked out, sir? Is there something?
I don't know. Whatever the punishment is, I'm not fighting the punishment. This is about the people who are being punished by virtue of losing their health care.
What is this guy doing here? I mean, what are these damn people? Usually, right, you get to drag a damn protester out of the meeting and then throw him in the street and then maybe even put some handcuffs on him and charge him with a couple of crimes, right? Breach of the peace, disorderly conduct, or Who knows? Maybe hamstringing the empire. He's hamstringing the empire.
This is the richest country in the world, and we have people who don't have good health care. We've got to do better. And now we're about to cut Medicaid, which is for poor people. Health care has become wealth care for many people.
Alright, so he got some attention afterwards, so I'm like, well, hell, maybe I should have watched this thing. I mean, what was this thing here about? So let's actually take a look at the moment, that he gets kicked out. Here he is with his cane, and he just keeps saying over and over again, you don't have a mandate to cut Medicaid. You don't have a mandate to cut Medicaid. You don't have a mandate to cut Medicaid.
Members are engaging in willful and continuing breach of decorum, and the chair is prepared to direct the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order to the joint session.
Do you see how J.D. Vance stood up as quick as possible? Because not only damn the Ukraine, but damn the Democrats, and damn anybody with a conscience, and damn anybody who wants to defend and fight for Medicaid and health care for Americans. Damn anybody who's good in this country. Damn everybody and anybody. Even when Donald had kind of pointed to somebody and then kind of made a gesture like, him out, right? Because typically you could just throw some poor peasant American out like it's, like they're nothing. But this is Congress. This is Congress. This is our government. And so you can't just treat a member of government just like you would treat, one of the plebeians, one of the pheasants. You don't want to just treat members of Congress like he's just a poor pheasant. There is one particular scene that's like pretty enraging. I don't know who this douchebag is right here.
Take your seat.
He's got this older gentleman with glasses right here.
Take your seat.
He's going to do this thing where he kind of...
Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
He could have made it embarrassing, made this guy here drag him out. And then look, who are these guys? Oh man, big tough guys. These are the goons. Here, watch this guy right here. This stupid ass motherfucker. I hate the way he does this little fucking twirly thing. Like, whippy whippity dippity doo. Get the hell out. This douchebag right here. Watch this fucking whippity whippity doo. Get him out of here. Whippity whippity doo. Get him out of here.
Members are directed to uphold and make...
Those kind of gestures, even the Bible says, like, you don't want your opponents, don't gloat, don't mock when your enemies go down or your opponents go down, something like that. And there is something to that, because I remember there was this prison break where the two guys, they were able to, get out of prison, but then they wrote in a little letter. They had, said, well, you didn't get us, and they put like a little smiley face, so they kind of had like sort of a kick in the nuts, right? As soon as they were, they left, they were able to break out of prison. They got out of prison, but right before they got out, they kind of did a, sort of a metaphorical kick in the nuts. So that's what had happened, and then they had censored him, but look, now he's getting more publicity. He's making a speech for the censorship, and then he's making speeches after the censor.
And still I rise. And I rise to explain why I did what I did.
And they had sung, we shall overcome, we shall overcome. So he's singing some of those, he and some of the other members of Congress are singing those old Negro spirituals. And so this is becoming sort of a rallying cry. When I think about James Carville saying, we're just going to sit back and watch, Donald destroy everything, and then people will come back to the Democrats. You know how goddamn fucking irresponsible that is? Che Guevara says that you have to make the apple fall. You got to make the apple fall. the apple cart isn't going to turn over by itself. And so it makes me think of just how Hakeem Jeffries says that Democrats have no leverage when the Department of Education was shut down by one fucking asshole who had the same smirk like that little twirly guy that we just saw. He was just standing there, he had a fucking smirk, and you had 20 Congress people just standing outside the damn Department of Education, the federal building, like, dubbity-doobity-doo, what do we do now? I like South Korea. When South Korea's president declared martial law, the army was going to block the Congress folks from going into Congress, from going into their parliament to vote. But the representatives from South Korea pushed through the barricade, pushed through the military people, incurred the possible threat of the South Korean army shooting members of Congress, but they pushed through and they voted the martial law down. They pushed through, voted martial law down, and that's really what they should have done with that guy that was standing in front of the Department of Education. And to just sit back and say, well, he's going to destroy everything, and then people will want to go back to the Democrats. Why would they want to go back to the Democrats? The same Democrats that financed genocide, the same Democrats that didn't get us universal health care, the same Democrats that don't care that there's all these homeless, three-quarter million homeless people on our streets, the same Democrats that don't give a damn about the poor, the same Democrats that aren't doing anything to strengthen union protections or to help rising wages or get better jobs or get good industry in here. They're not passing out UBI checks. They're not ending wars. Neoliberalism has turned their backs on the working class, and they've turned their backs on the working class since the 1990s. So let's listen to some more Al Green here.
And I did it with intentionality. The president indicated that he had a mandate. I said to the president, you do not have a mandate to cut Medicaid. I have constituents who need Medicaid. They will suffer and some will die if they don't get Medicaid. I heard the speaker when he said that I should cease. I did not, and I did not with intentionality. It was not done out of a burst of emotion. I was emotional about it, but I did it with intentionality. I think that on some questions of conscience, you have to be willing to suffer the consequences.
I like what Al Green is doing here. I mean, you could have had your outburst without suffering the consequences. Look at Lauren Boebert, look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? And then there was Joe Wilson, you lie! Right? So Al Green is 77 years old. He's been the representative in the U.S. House for Texas's 9th District. This is his 11th term. Al Green has been a congressman since 2005. He represents Texas, the 9th District, which includes Houston. So this is Houston, Texas, right here. And then when he's talking about matters of conscience, that just makes me think of MLK. MLK says that right temporarily defeated is infinitely better than evil triumphant. MLK also said, when our days become dreary with low hovering clouds of despair, and when our nights become darker than 1,000 midnights, we will know that we are living in the creative turmoil of a genuine civilization struggling to be born. And he also says, law and order is there to establish justice, and when they fail to establish justice, then those people who pretend to be law and order actually become dangerously structured dams that block the flow of domestic tranquility and perfect unionism and justice. It's rebar enforced wall. Resistance to tyranny is obedience to God. Resisting tyranny is the highest ideal of man. So let's listen to some more Al Green.
And I have said I will. I will suffer whatever the consequences are, because I don't believe that in the richest country in the world people should be without good health care.
And the winning teacher that came...
Oh my God, that guy fell into a pit of ashes or something. What is wrong with this guy? So let's take a look, listen to some more.
189, the censure resolution as it relates to my behavior. I believe this resolution should be read. I am not in any way upset with the speaker. I want people to know that the speaker did what he was supposed to do. He did what he was supposed to do when we had the joint session of Congress.
I mean, did Judas not do what he was supposed to do according to Jesus? Judas did exactly what he was supposed to do as well.
When I interrupted, the speaker called it to my attention. He did it on multiple occasions. I have no reason in my heart to be upset with the speaker. Later, persons came over and escorted me out. I appreciate them. They were very kind.
Later on in this speech, after the censor, he's going to say that we need to use the same tactics that we used in the 1960s.
Understand that he should be on my side. He should be on the side of the people who need this health care. He has the ear of the president. Mr. Musk, speak to him. He listens to you. But for the grace of God, dear brother, you could be on Medicaid. You've just been blessed. Don't assume that it was your intellect that has caused you all of these great blessings that you've received. You've just been blessed beyond measure. Speak to the president and tell him that Medicaid ought not be cut. But I continue. I interrupted. I was said to be in need of sanctions. I came to the floor today, and while the speaker was reading, I recalled what happened in the 60s. I recalled when we were faced with adverse circumstances. We would sing a song that would inspire and encourage us to move forward with alacrity. The words were, "We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday." Deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. That was an act of incivility. Why, Al Green, would you come to the well before your colleagues in the world and commit an act of incivility? Here is why. Because when the President of the United States, right there at that podium, addressed the members of Congress, Democrats seated on this side.
Look at this cool ass tie. It says "We the People." Starts. Is that the whole preamble, or is it just "We the People"?
Seated, many of them saying nothing. The President of the United States looked upon them, pointed toward them, and said, I quote, and said, "Lunatics." The President of the United States at a joint session of Congress called members of Congress lunatics. That was an act of incivility. Incivility. There comes a time when you cannot allow the president's incivility to take advantage of our civility. And that's what's happening in this country. His incivility is overwhelming our civility.